Alright, so I'll be pretty remiss if I didn't necessarily talk about, the whole live stream of Genshin and what they decided to drop in 5.8. Because, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there as they typically normally do. And since it's the last Natlan, update they were really going to get for a very probably decent amount of time, which is a bit sad, but also at the same time, we're still going to get some updates here and there. Still, it's a bit sad. Anytime we gotta dip off to another region, because it's like, alright, so we go into another region, and 9 times out of 10, we're not really gonna be in the other regions as much. And they're gonna be basically gonna feel, like they don't really matter anymore, which is always a bit sad. I feel this way with Fontaine. Hell, I even feel it a little bit with Inazuma, kinda, if I'm being honest. But that's just kind of naturally how it is. But anyway, the whole dang patch is basically Bennett finally getting his shine, finally maybe getting members of his adventure team for once in his dang life, also looking like a high res, honestly a bit older-ish looking Bennett. Am I tripping? Like, does he not look older to you? I feel like he kind of does. And also, I guess from Persona 4, I mean Persona 5, I mean Persona 3, I mean Genshin Impact, Ineffa. Yeah, totally mentioned that. I totally meant that. However, obviously with this whole like event that's coming out literally like what, in the next 2 weeks or so, obviously there's a few things that we can very much look forward to, and I'm not really going to talk about like the events and things of sort like that. I will talk about some stuff, but mainly I'm here for story. We're here to talk about the story and what my thinking is when it comes down to just not only this patch but also in 6.0 with Nagrai and how much we're honestly going to see. So, obviously, we're going to this nice little beach vacation island that's actually a permanent place in, Natland, and also have some of the Mare Javari that's there. Some of it, because apparently it's not going to be all of the Mare Javari, it's going to be some of it that's going to be, released at some later point in time to see the whole damn thing, I guess, which is a bit weird, but it is what it is, I guess. But when it comes down to it, though, yeah, essentially, this is nice to see that this is permanent as a summer event. Much less, I believe they said the quest to that summer event is actually going to be, like, consistently there. Like, once the patch is done, you can still go back to play that summer event, which is amazing, meaning they're finally learning. Yes, when it comes to permanent events, sometimes people want to keep it around. When it comes to major events with story and lore, yes, you should have that to be playable for everybody to experience and not take it out the game like a bum ass. Finally, you're learning something from ZZZ, apparently. But when it comes down to it, though, yeah, it's basically just going to be a nice little vacation spot, a nice little island for us to do the doodads and do things and all that sort of jazz. And it's just going to be nice. Bennett's there. Venti is also going to be there, most likely for, I'd assume, the Mare Javari instead of, anything else. I mean, granted, probably like Natland alcohol, but that's basically probably about it. Mainly more so about the whole damn, Mare Javari, because the Mare Javari is supposed to be a windless place, but that's looking pretty windy to me with all that red ass, like sky space and obviously the breeze and all of everything kind of looking crazy over there. So that's very much, on some type of weird type of timing. Then we also have someone like Ineffa herself, who is also very weird. Also, just to kind of really point this out, she is basically having pieces of her from every different region that we've been through. Like, I believe they say something about her hairpiece being from Mondstadt, like some other parts of her is from Fontaine, other parts of her is from like Sumeru or something like that. And even the core that makes her run to make her actually, in operation is from Natland, and the source mechanisms is easily getting affected around her due to it. And we already know source mechanisms come from like the dragon stuff and like the people from the old days of the dragon when they used to be around and whatever, and Ineffa has that core inside of her. Yeah, it wouldn't come as a surprise to her to kind of be questioning going home, as in, yeah, let's go find where the dragons are again, and that makes a lot of sense. We also got to see a bit of the Wild Hunt, or at least I would say not really see the Wild Hunt, but we got to see what type of crazy shenanigans did they end up pulling. And basically, yeah, that's kind of a part of the Marriage of Ari, at least from how the trailer is shaping it up. It sounds like it's part of the Marriage of Ari. We could be wrong, could be something else. But at the very same time, big piece of lore, they somehow managed to just straight up drag the moon down to the planet. Which, granted, if there's any force to do something like that, I'd imagine the Wild Hunt will be able to do something like that. Which, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if it was just me, or maybe it's, I was thinking something else, but I honestly kind of thought the Heavenly Principles destroyed the moon. I don't know why I thought that. I really don't, but I kind of did. And, maybe thinking that, oh, they just being assholes for no reason, just kind of like, wiping out all existence because they kind of need to. But apparently that's just not the case, so that's, I guess, news for me, which I guess means that the Heavenly Principles somewhat respect, like, powers that kind of exist there, as long as it's not interfering in, I guess, what the Heavenly Principles want to do. So I suppose that's a thing. I guess, at least that's my logic. But when it comes down to it too, another thing that's kind of interesting to know is that because the Wild Hunt, or at least as we're assuming, destroyed the damn moon and brought pieces of it down as meteorites, I assume, that just also means it just goes to show that, the borders of the world is essentially not necessarily in the best position. Granted, we kind of already knew this too, because Alice is literally watching the borders of the world and trying to, make sure everything is not necessarily going to complete shit, right? But also, it really just reinforces the idea that Asmodee, or the Shade of Space, is very much dipping off somewhere and not necessarily doing their damn job. Because literally, I would imagine if the Shade of Space was, around doing what they're supposed to, I imagine they would care for, what is happening when it comes down to, when Mawika punched the damn sky, and a lot of other sky elements that's been happening in some shape and form in some weird ways, right? I imagine they would also be not necessarily happy that moon fragments will be dropping from the sky, considering that shit is beyond the firmament, I assume. So again, there's a lot of stuff that I would imagine they wouldn't be happy for, but because they're out of action, no one's really maintaining the whole sky above as a whole. So I'd imagine that we're probably going to see a lot more damages to the sky as we kind of continue on through the venture of just, Teyvat as a whole, and as we get to Nokrai too. Also, we're going to be fighting the monster in the Marriage of Ari. Do not ask me how to pronounce his name, because I don't know. I will say one thing too, I do love the scale of that big bitch. I actually like the scale of it, because we're actually small, and we're not necessarily watching some, some medium-sized creature do damage. It's an actual big-ass creature, and it's also a creature that Ryan Daughter made, so obviously it's on weird, wacky-ass timing, looking like a bishop and some utter weird shit. But at the same time, we're also gonna beat it, because of course we do. And it seems like we're getting Injo's help with this as well. So yay, we're actually getting more Injo. And honestly, it seems like we're also like teaming up to beat its ass, which is always a good time. Like F you with that damn monster, and F you, Ryan Daughter, for creating that damn thing. That's just how it is. You gotta get your ass beat a little bit, because that's just how it is. You can't stand up to the Traveler and Injo mostly, because Injo just out here, wanting to clap cheeks too. Not really, but it just is what it is. But if I had to ask any question, or at least wonder about anything about what we have seen throughout this entire patch update so far, I am very curious more on the Wild Hunt than anything else. Because of anything, it seems like also Ineffa might have a run-in with it. If it is that red entity that we see, it seems like it might have a run-in with it of some kind. And when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, so what did the Wild Hunt do to these people, or, what exactly happened here? Because I doubt the Wild Hunt themselves would just kind of do a lot of this stuff for literally no reason, unless there literally is no reason and they just destroy shit just because they can destroy shit, and that's literally the whole damn point. I don't think that would be the case, but you never really know. Because the Wild Hunt is a part of the Abyss. So I assume, somebody will be, I guess in space or whatever will be leading the charge that maybe we just don't know about, or something else differently could be going on with it. I don't necessarily know, but I imagine that it's not just doing this just because it wants to. Okay, maybe it might do, but I imagine there's some rhyme or reason for it, because you just don't do anything for literally no reason. Destruction just don't happen for just no reason. There has to be some sort of reason to it, and if it just is destruction for destruction's sake, well damn, you just hate everybody now, don't you? Lastly, we also got to see a bit of a teaser for, Not Cry coming through with the Frost Moon Scions, and they looking mad good. I like, honestly, the NPC designs here. And also, we get to see a playable character, most likely, that is very much, going to be on some weird sort of timing. So we don't know what's going on, but it looking pretty dang good. I'm also kind of wondering if this is the same sort of character that we saw in that one teaser with like the fairies and the fae of what they were talking about earlier. I don't know if this is the exact character, but it feels kind of sort of ish on that sort of timing. And I can't help but to think when I see their ears too, that I'm reminded of people like Alice or Klee, and maybe just imagine, is they somehow related to this in some shape or form? Is like, hell, is even someone like Nahida could be related to like the biology of this in some shape or form? Because it's kind of weird how this sort of body, or at least that biology with the ears, kind of exists, and yet no one ever really questions like, hey, where did it come from, or what exactly is it, nationally where it's from and all that sort of stuff. So I imagine that that will be related to. I don't know how. We really wouldn't know in what way. Maybe like, I don't know, the phase somehow merged with humanity and created certain individuals or something like that. I don't know. But they have to have some sort of lore, right? Also, I guess the other last thing I could really add to, I guess, what we have seen so far is that also Sandrone is apparently in Nahcry too. Which, granted, I feel like at this point we could kind of put on a damn checklist that everybody of everybody, for the most part in the Fatui, is gonna show up in Nahcry, right? Piero's pretty much gonna be there. I imagine Arlecchino and Child will be there. I imagine, Sandrone's gonna be there. Well, actually, confirm that today. So Sandrone will be there. Columbina is missing in action, but somehow, somewhere, is in Nahcry as well. Like, I imagine that a lot of them will pretty much be there. How much of them we will see, I don't necessarily know. And just overall, it's just gonna be a very big ass experience. I can feel it from here. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, there's one more thing I do want to add to this. So when they was basically describing Ineffa and kind of describing like, well, also the fact that she has like a, you know, new elemental reaction, which kind of makes me wonder, should I pull for Ineffa? I do want her, but at the same time, we don't know who's coming next, so there's also that nonsense. But when it comes down to it though, but besides the new elemental reaction, or at least the buff to elemental reaction that they're trying to give to, Electra, most likely other ones as we go through Nahcry and get more characters. Essentially, they did one thing in story that kind of is like a known thing, but also kind of something I really am now starting to pick up on with all the Asmodee speaking theories, is that how she described Paimon. And again, it's just weird because now they just say, oh, Paimon's just a white balloon. Again, once again, kind of just feeling those theories of being like, alright, so what actually is Paimon, Because this ain't the first time something like this happened. One person announced her as like a giant floating fruitcake or something like that. Another like Melusine, like, I guess like thought she was like some type of puppet being strung up from beyond the sky, and now we getting a balloon and all this other stuff, just adding more fuel to the fire that no one can really justifiably understand what Paimon really is, and everybody's coming out with different explanations as to what Paimon looks like to them and all that sort of stuff, right? And granted, I do feel like a lot of people do say too that, oh, high traveler not questioning anything. Well, let's just keep it very much a stack. If you were somebody that wasn't from this land and essentially you don't know exactly what is here, and you see a lot of weird stuff that kind of happens and floats around and all this sort of stuff with the gods and deities or whatever, Paimon doesn't sound that out of place. She doesn't sound that out of place. if we're going to be absolutely honest. That being said, it does bring up questions again more so to what actually is her identity and what actually is going on here, because it seems like everybody has a different explanation as to what Paimon actually is, and for whatever reason no one can just sit here and agree that she is just a weird being. She kind of just has an existence here that is just kind of just, reasonable, which could mean maybe, I don't know, just throwing it out there, maybe she could be some sort of power of reason, like a certain sort of principles that's in the heavens. Don't really know. That'd be kind of wild if that was the case, but don't really know. Just kind of throwing it out there. Again, just kind of weird how so many people can have so many different explanations of what Paimon actually is, only for them to not really say exactly what Paimon is. So there's very much that. But yeah, overall, I guess I am very much looking forward to this. Kind of sad to say goodbye to Natlan. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like Natlan or don't really care too much for it for a lot of reasons, but there was some gems in Natlan too, and I could probably make a whole another video just talking about what I did like about it and just kind of glaze it up a little bit. Again, there's problems there, but there still was some stuff in there that was just stuff I'm not necessarily thinking that anybody is going to forget. Plus, lore-wise, there was a lot of stuff to kind of have there, and they're still jamming out lore that we are going to see within the next 2 weeks. So it's just a good time. It's a lot of good stuff. Also, yeah, I keep forgetting stuff. Yelan is voiced, which is great. And also, Yelan is a thing again, which has been one of the biggest things I've been wanting to see for a good minute in time outside of a Chi-Chi story quest. But when it comes down to it, Yelan's actually going to be in existence again, and actually has a sexy ass skin, which finally some damn Yelan love. About damn time. But yeah, I think that's actually, now I'm actually done. So we'll see what Yelan is cooking up, and apparently she's going to not cry too. Be careful, Yelan, we don't want to lose you. But yeah, that's essentially all we got to say for this one. I will be back for later for a different video that is about an anime that's dropping today, and if you know what anime I'm talking about, or you already know what's dropping today, yeah, we're going to talk about that one. But when it comes down to it though, that's essentially all I really wanted to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow my socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until then, it's me, Boy J, signing off. I'll see you in a bit.